Do you want to hear a crazy fact? This year marks the 10th anniversary Splatoon 2 was first shown off to the world. You heard that right, 10 years of Splatoon 2, not 1. It's no secret, but I adore the Splatoon franchise. I made a retrospective last year on the first Splatoon, but as a little refresher, the original Splatoon was released in 2015 to critical acclaim. It is one of my favorite games of all time due to many reasons, but undoubtedly how unique and out of the box it was reason for myself and many others. It came at a time of uncertainty for the company, but despite that, opened the gates to a franchise that is now considered one of the big four of Nintendo as a whole. All this was done in 10 years, which is honestly ridiculous to think about. For context, 10 years after the original Mario Bros. Released in 1985, Mario's first 3D adventure of Super Mario 64 was freshly released, well before games like Galaxy, Odyssey, the movies, things that made Mario a media juggernaut. Zelda, 10 years after its initial 1986 release, was only 3 games into the franchise, with the next game, Ocarina of Time, releasing 2 years after in 1998. I say this all to put into perspective how crazy Splatoon has become in such a short amount of time. What might not be so thought of though is how much of this is contributed to from the release of Splatoon 2. In modern day, Splatoon 2 is thought of to be the worst of the 3 games. 1 has that nostalgic factor, while 3 is the current release with the most content. 2 oftentimes gets the snub in conversations. While I do think the second entry is my least favorite of the 3, I will say that is in no way to disrespect it. I do see a bit of disrespect towards the game, calling it a whole assortment of things that I quite frankly don't think are true. Splatoon 2 was a very important title not just in Splatoon and to me, but in the landscape of Nintendo as a whole. Without this game, Splatoon just doesn't become one of the big Nintendo franchises it is today. So today, I want to look back at Splatoon 2, detailing its release, how the game was then, today, as well as my own memories with the title as well. We start in 2015 when the original Splatoon released on the Wii U. The game became really popular among fans and people on the outside looking in, and despite it not being a console mover, Nintendo had their eyes on the franchise. Nintendo saw how much reception the game brought and saw that it was a very valuable property, but it ran a few risks. For starters, what was on the horizon for Nintendo? While I personally don't feel like 2015 was this doomed year like it's described as, it by no means was a success in terms of what was to come on the immediate future. This would be until October of 2016 when we got the reveal of the next console, officially named the Nintendo Switch. We had known a new console was on the way, after all it's only natural and the idea of Nintendo stepping away from the console market was out of the picture unless they absolutely were desperate. The console was dubbed under the codename NX and had been loosely thrown around for a few years, but this was the first reveal of the console, and heads turned. They turned for a lot of reasons, but the reason for this specific video is the preview of a Splatoon trailer during that segment of the reveal. Going back to 2015 once more, they might not have been clear on the immediate future, but in my opinion, 2015 was undeniably important for setting the foundation for the following years, with Splatoon being the prime example. But the other risk this ran was the uncertainty of making this a new franchise player. Not that it wasn't capable of it had more potential than arguably any of their IP, but with how ominous the company's status became, making consoles looming in the background, maybe it was a bit much to trust. But Nintendo had something to prove, and if they needed to prove they were still the big players in the game, they had to take risks and they decided to greenlight a Splatoon sequel. However, there's one more thing I want to bring up, and that is Nintendo sequels. Every company does sequels regardless of the medium, but how Nintendo goes about their sequels has always fascinated me. Technically, Nintendo is constantly doing a sequel. There's always a new Mario game, a new Zelda, Pokemon happens year-round, but all these games, with a few exceptions, move on to the next. 64 went on Sunshine instead of a 64-2 or whatever you'd call it. Galaxy 1 and 2 were a thing, but after that it was brand new with 3D Land. Zelda in 3D just didn't have any period, but Splatoon presented a unique opportunity to break this ice. The type of game Splatoon is, it's primarily online, at that a shooter, so you have a very easy formula to create sequels. They just needed a hit on the idea of Splatoon becoming a mainstay, but for someone like me, they already had me in on the first game. Cutting to me, I was beyond excited. I had gotten Splatoon in the summer of 2015 and I fell in love. I had grown up playing shooters like Call of Duty and Battlefield, but Splatoon had me in a trance. The unique characters, the special art style, the music, and core concept, it's forever my favorite Wii U game and one of my favorite games of all time, so make no mistake, if there was a sequel, I was there. When I woke up that October morning and watched the Switch reveal trailer, noticing that Splatoon trailer in there pumped me up even more. I was 9 when the first Splatoon came out, and by the time its sequel would release, I would have been 11, don't make any jokes, that's wrong. So I was the prime age for Splatoon, and I was ready to go. In January 2017, during the Switch presentation, we would get the official confirmation of Splatoon 2. New with graphics, specials, weapons, and beyond. Things were looking on the up, but it wasn't done yet. We would not only get a dedicated Nintendo Direct for the game, showing the return of Splatfest, new idols, story mode, and more, but also the reveal of a global test fire to hype fans up and give new ones their first look into the franchise. I didn't play this one. I honestly couldn't tell you why. I had a Switch by this time, but thankfully they swung back a week before launch on July 15th with the Splatfest world premiere, which I did play and picked the winning team, Team Ice Cream. But now we get to the day released, July 21st. I remember this day well. I had just gotten another shitty haircut, and I had picked up my pre-order alongside the Corn and Bayonetta amiibos. My mom had known how much I enjoyed Splatoon and knew that this was a game I had to have. So much appreciated. I booted up my Switch and got started with my journey on Splatoon 2. Much like the predecessor, Splatoon 2 had a story mode as well as the standard Turf 4 and ranked modes, but with the new addition being Salmon Run. This game's take on the survival mode, akin to Call of Duty Zombies. However, I'll go in order of what I played first, so let's start with the story mode. Splatoon 2's story mode follows in similar vein to both the first game's story mode and the final Splatfest from the first game, Callie vs. Marie. The story of 2 takes place around 2 years after that Splatfest, in which Marie defeated Callie, causing a divide in distance between one another, worrying Marie that the results affected Callie. Upon returning from a visit to her parents, she notices not only is the great Zapfish missing again, but Callie is as well. Marie reprises her role of Agent 2 and recruits the player, Agent 4, to help defeat the Octarians in hopes of finding Callie. Reaching the climax of the game sees Callie brainwashed by DJ Octavio, who he once again defeats with the help of Marie and Captain Cuttlefish, reuniting the great Zapfish with the city and seeing Callie and Marie make amends and resume their music careers. I'll be honest, I love the story mode for this game and the first games. Are they better than every story mode after the franchise? No, not at all. But there's something about them that's just so nostalgic and cozy to me. Fuck, sorry. Had a little frog in my throat. The music exploring Octa Valley and Canyon respectively has always resonated with me, further adding to that nostalgic and cozy feeling. It also feels rewarding to have played the story mode to its end if you had played the first game's adventure, which feels weird to say given that it was only 2 years old by this point. I remember just trying to go for all the hero weapons and having a ton of fun with it, and that final battle, just as good if not better than the first games. Again, the story mode isn't the most exhilarating thing out there, but it's a good sit down. Of course, this is not the game's main attraction, that would go to the online multiplayer. Turf 4 and Ranked returned from the previous game, with the new addition being the ever-divisive Clan Blitz. But before I get to that, let me first talk about Turf 4. When I first got the game, I remember being amazed at how beautiful the ink had looked. While 1 is by no means a bad-looking game, the ink as an example is truly a night and day difference in the first game to the second. In the second, it's a really pretty looking texture, further enhanced by the Switch's better visuals than the Wii U. As dumb as it sounds, it's the closest the series has gotten to looking like actual lumped paint, including a nice glittery brush over. I guess I'm not artistic, I don't fucking know. The point is, it looks good. As for playing the game, it was still the great gameplay from the first game. The biggest change arguably comes in the form of the controller, as we no longer had the gamepad. And honestly, I don't have an issue with losing it. I think the gamepad is an amazing controller, and having the map on the gamepad screen was huge, but relegating the map to the X button was the perfect replacement. What I remember being the most hyped for was the new weapons though, primarily the Splat Dualies and the Splatbrella. I was specifically excited for the Splatbrella as I was at the peak of my Call of Duty phase not too long before this game with Black Ops 3, and I had went for diamond camo on all the shotguns, my favorite of which being the KRM-262, if you know, you know. I was expecting it to be in similar vein to that, and technically it was, but they ended up being a second place to the Splat Dualies. These were the perfect new weapon class for this game, my god. The ability to roll with the weapon added so much strategy and dynamic to the game, which didn't really get a lot of standalone movement additions in this game. Not to mention the sick new specials, Splashdown and the Inkjet especially, such good shit. Alongside this came a new slew of new maps, with areas such as Macomart, Manta Maria, and Wahoo World being brought back in Splatoon 3, while others, at least for the time being, are exclusive to Splatoon 2 such as the Reef, Starfish main stage, and especially the Shifty Stations, which we'll get to soon. Alongside bringing back select Splatoon 1 areas, and the game had a really strong map selection to back, which never made it feel repetitive. Now I mentioned Ranked earlier, as this was the first time I had really played Ranked in the series. I dabbled in it in the first game, but the second go around was a full investment from me, especially with them adding X rank later down the line. Splat Zones, Rainmaker, and Tower Control returned from the first game, but of course the new addition is the spotlight here, Clan Blitz. Here's the thing. Clan Blitz is a mode that is entirely dependent on the cooperation of your teammates, more so than any other mode. If you have a good group, one that assists with clamshells, passes over some, and defends you while throwing the football, yes, it's a football, I'm not calling it a fucking power clam. But if you have a group like this, you're bound to really enjoy it, and it can easily be the most strategic mode of Ranked. But I'm telling you a pipe dream scenario, and unfortunately 99% of the time you're matched with the most ass crew ever. But regardless, Ranked was cool still. Despite these two, arguably the most exciting addition of honestly the entire game was the arrival of Salmon Run. Salmon Run is a game mode in which a team of 4 works together to collect as many power eggs for the Grizzco Industries as possible, defeating Salmonoids in 3 waves. To use Call of Duty as an example again, think of zombies, only instead of endless rounds it's done in 3 and you have a certain amount of eggs you need to collect in order to move on to the next round. If everyone on the team gets wiped out, game over. And man, this was so much fun. It really was such an easy layup for the team to make a survival mode for this game, and did they crush it or what? I would spend hours on this mode, going for the rewards, playing lots with both friends and strangers online. This was a mode that thankfully everyone could kind of do their own thing and still work towards the goal, so it was often the mode I went to over ranked. Though this mode also had ranks, the higher giving better rewards naturally. The only thing with this mode is, unlike everything else, it wasn't always available. Instead, it usually followed an every other day time slot for around 12-ish hours or so. As disappointing as this was as a kid to launch the game after school only to be met with the Grizz Coast shop closed, in a weird way it made you appreciate it more. Don't get me wrong, I am beyond fortunate that we have Salmon Run available 24/7 now in Splatoon 3, and there's not a world where I want it any other way, but having to wait to play this mode, or having it on for that limited time that it was, made you yearn for it more, if that makes any sense. Some of the best times I had in the game were on Salmon Run, be it clutching up with the last egg with mere seconds to go, everyone accidentally falling in high tide, or even just waiting for it to open. It was so much fun and easily the best new addition in the base game. Now, it'd be remiss of me to not mention Splatfest, and again, so much fun here. The biggest change of these was easily the two new idols, Pearl and Marina. In any game, it's a tough pill to swallow replacing previously established and beloved characters, but Splatoon has a really great track record of pulling it off, and it all began here. I, like a lot of other people, thought Pearl was deadass ugly, but Marina though, wowza, now that is a character right there. However, over the years of playing, I also, like a lot of other players, grew to love the pair. They have such great chemistry, depending on how you look at it at times, maybe a little too much chemistry. But no, in all seriousness, their dynamic is just iconic, and I adore the idols in this game. But with them established, how are the themes in the game? The first installment had iconic Splatfests such as Pokemon Red vs. Blue, Cats vs. Dogs, and Roller Coasters vs. Water Parks. But thankfully, this one had a lot of great ones too. The technically first one, courtesy of the Splatfest World Premiere, was an age-old question of ice cream versus cake. One I took great pride in, actually. Some Pepe lore for you, but I don't actually really like a lot of sweets. Don't look at any Christmas special on the channel, please. I've never been a cake person, but I have been an ice cream person. More Pepe lore, I like mint chocolate chip, vanilla, and chocolate personally. If you don't like them, I don't know what to tell you. So of course I picked ice cream and actually won. Great stuff in there. In retrospect, a lot of the themes were actually really good. Money versus love, retro versus modern, trick or treat are all just some of the many great examples here. Honestly, the only one I don't really like is no pulp versus pulp, but besides that, all of them were interesting at the minimum. Also returning from the first game were special collab Splatfests. Returning collaborator Nickelodeon gave us the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splatfest series, where they put the 4 turtles against each other in a tournament-style Splatfest, with Donatello beating Raphael in the finals. I'm sorry, Leonardo Truthers, maybe we'll get him next time. They also did more Nintendo collaborations, with Heroes vs. Villains to promote Smash Ultimate, as well as Super Mushroom vs. Superstar to promote Mario's 35th anniversary. Honestly though, I gotta admit, as a pathetic American, I am jealous of Japan's themes this time around. They had McDonald's fries versus nuggets, a Uniqlo collaboration putting warm innerwear versus warm outerwear, newest versus most popular models of Nike shoes, Pocky Chocolate versus Pocky Gokuboso, a really neat Splatoon esports theme one pitting CE versus PA, and best of all, the Hello Kitty tournament with Hello Kitty, My Melody, Cinema Roll, and Pom Pom Porin, with My Melody taking that one. Now Europe, on the other hand, damn. Front roll versus back roll, eat it first or save it for last, gherkin versus gook out. What? I'm sorry, no, Pharaoh, what the fuck is a gherkin? That's bullshit. I don't know what the hell that is. Europe was not given the kind of Splatfest, but that didn't take away from an overall incredibly enjoyable Splatfest era, capped off with the most iconic one being Team Chaos versus Team Order, with it directly impacting the story of the third Splatoon. This Splatfest felt like a spectacle, and it was a time where all of the community felt like it came together as one for a weekend full event. I went with Chaos as most people did, and while there were technically a few Splatfests after this one, this was the grand finale for this game. I had mentioned it earlier, but these Splatfests had introduced, and so far the only games to have them, the Shifty Stations. These were Splatfest exclusive stages beginning with the first Splatfest of the full game, each backed with some unique gimmick or theme such as, say, ink cannons or grapplinks. They were a ton of fun and really helped make each Splatfest feel unique in their own way, with the final Splatfest incorporating all the Shifty Stations. But to reiterate, I just love the Splatfests in this game, and they really did help the game's life cycle remain fresh alongside a steady wave of updates. I quickly did want to mention those updates though, as this game did a really great job of making them feel grand, specifically that 4.0 trailer if you know what I'm talking about. Backed with new weapons, gear pieces, and stages for both the regular online multiplayer and Salmon Run, they felt bigger in this game than any of the others, and it's largely due to those amazing trailers made by the team. But I wanted to bring it back to me for a second and just talk about my experience with Splatoon 2. In the video for the first game, I mentioned how I was a kid when it first came out. I was 9. When Splatoon 2 came out, I was 11, making essentially the beginning of my teenage years. I was a little early bloomer. But to me, each game in the series marks an era of my life, if you will. Splatoon 1, I was a child. Splatoon 2, I was beginning my teenage years and adjusting to life in a new state. Splatoon 3 was the peak of my teen years, while Raiders I will be in the midst of my adulthood. I'll be 20 assuming it comes out in 2026. But this game is extremely nostalgic for me, much like the rest are. I remember the day I got it from GameStop and the excitement I had rushing home to play it. That summer of 2017 was filled with nights of private battles with my friends and viewers at that time. I'd be doing a disservice not to mention some of those people now, so shoutouts are in order to Too Lit Peyton or Uncle P, Neon Jaden, Octica, Lime, Novdog, and I'm sure a slew of others I'm forgetting. But truly thank you all for so much fun for those years. But yes, throughout 2017 leading all the way to 2020, the game was such a treat to play. It was with me through a lot of pivotal times in my life, from being new with me when I first moved to Utah, to my struggles of my preteen years and once again moving, up to being a comfort game in the pandemic. Splatoon 2 is often regarded as the worst game in the trilogy, but I don't think it should be deemed that. Maybe it doesn't have the unique and special feeling of the first, and it might not be as refined as the third title, but it has a lot of qualities the others don't and introduced a lot of staples into the franchise. It introduced a series staple in Salmon Run, had arguably the best Splatfest in the series to date, gave us things like Clam Blitz, iconic stages, gear pieces, the Splat Dualies and Splatbrella, and so many more other amazing things as well as exclusives such as Shifty Stations. In short, I adore this game still, and I think it was a critical and successful sequel to the first. I didn't mean to edge it on for this long, but I felt like it was most appropriate to end the video off with the bang that was the Octo expansion. This is regarded as one of, if not the best DLC expansions Nintendo has ever made, and it's for good reason. If this video were the question of why Splatoon 2 was a fantastic, or I guess I said Splattastic sequel, sorry, Octo expansion is all you need to understand. This is the perfect example of taking everything done previously and doing it better while introducing an appropriate amount of new without losing the core values of the original. Revealed during the March 8th, 2018 Nintendo Direct, immediately this trailer just felt massive. The sinister walking, the isolated agent on the floor, whatever this was going to be felt like a big deal and the pinnacle of the franchise. We went for a few months without knowing when this thing would be dropped, and fitting with the sinister nature of this trailer, we would get its surprise dropped on us following E3 2018 and the Splatoon 2 World Championship 2018 Finals, releasing on June 13th, 2018. Playing this expansion, it was deadass like coke, I'm not gonna lie to you. Again, a shout out is in order to Neon Jaden, who graciously bought me this expansion when it came out, so truly thank you if you come across this video. But anyways, the generalized story of this goes, you play as Agent 8, an Octoling with amnesia who wakes up in the deep sea metro to Captain Cuttlefish, who deems you not a threat and takes you under his wing throughout this journey alongside Pearl and Marina. You also meet the game's main villain, Commander Tartar, a talking telephone created by the Professor long ago. He tasks you with collecting the 4 things, all of which build a blender which he uses as a part of his master plan before you and the gang team together to defeat him in an epic final battle. The levels in this expansion are each crafted so carefully, with some of them carefulness being a primary objective like that stupid ass box level. They're designed as tests instead of levels, with you completing differing objectives such as guiding an 8-ball to a destination or breaking boxes in a certain way to mirror an image as opposed to the standard get to the end of the level like Octa Valley and Canyon before. It has difficulty levels based on what weapon you choose, with the higher reward being the harder weapon. It also retains the life system, with levels offering 1, 3, or 5 depending on level type, though you can also lose lives by failing to complete the level, which adds an extra level to the gameplay. As far as regular levels go, I love the 8-ball ones and those box breakings from earlier, but I think the only level I feel would be just to talk about for this video is the final level, your escape and battle with Tartar. The game takes you through 7 challenge levels, all interconnected with one another, building up suspense for this final battle before arriving on a Statue of Liberty-esque statue dubbed the NILS statue. In this battle, you do a turf war, with the objective being to explode multiple hyper bombs within a 3-minute allotted time. If you cover the statue in time, you save the world. If not, Tartar takes over the globe. It's genuinely one of the most thrilling final bosses, not just in Nintendo, but gaming history. It was the perfect cap off to an incredible expansion pass. But that'll do it for me. Again, I adore Splatoon 2 for everything it was and did for the franchise moving forward. I think it's the perfect sequel in every way, with the 3rd entry only furthering the developments made here. But let me know in the comments down below if you have any memories or thoughts on not just the game, but the video as a whole. And of course, if you did enjoy the video, a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel would do wonders for me. You know the drill. But that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.